Today we are stepping back into the 90s, a little history lesson on one of my favorite record labels, No Fashion. So the other day, my good friend Steve, who is also an awesome YouTuber, I'll leave a link down below for you to check him out, Steve Young, he messaged me that he had just discovered this band and this particular album, Mork Greening's Tusen Naar Hartut. And so then I started saying, what about some other No Fashion bands? Are you into other No Fashion bands? He's like, I don't even know what you're talking about, dude. So I thought, what a perfect time for me to do another one of my label spotlight videos. I don't think I've done but one of these in the history of my YouTube channel, sadly. There's a couple that I have ideas. Plug my phone in here. There's a couple other labels I have ideas for, but I'll leave a link down below for you to check this one out. The first one, maybe the only one of these that I've done so far, is on Napalm Records. One of the best labels there ever was, but there's a cutoff point. There's a cutoff point with No Fashion as well. A couple orders of business in the background. I am playing not a No Fashion release, but it very well could have been, style-wise. This is a band called The Dark Send with Unsunned. I like to keep my cheapo stickers on there, as you can see. Killer, Swedish, blackened death metal, I believe recorded with Swano and in Sound Studios. A couple other honorable mentions that maybe could have lived on the No Fashion label. We've got for Gelmer, I want to highlight Light the Black Flame. This actually came out on one of my other favorite labels, Cacophonous, but yeah, really, really awesome, melodic, Swedish stuff. And as you can see, this little gremlin here has lightning bolt boobies, so what more do I need to say? This is not the original cover artwork, but this is a reissue that came out recently. Varga Vinter with Frost Fod. Not a fan of this reissue cover. That's what I should just rename this whole channel to, right? And finally, I have Choir of Vengeances, one and only self-titled demo release. I picked this up from Necropolis's distro back in the late 90s when this came out. Really not much to look at. There is a reissue of this that came out about 5 years ago that has a couple of bonus tracks that were previously unreleased. Anyways, complete nerd stuff. You may be familiar, if you're not familiar with No Fashion Records, but there's a chance you may be familiar with Majesties. A couple 2 years ago, they put out one of the best records of the year, and my good friend Tanner plays in that band, and I said to him, this band is such an homage to the No Fashion catalog. I feel like there ought to be some sort of logo play where we pay homage to the No Fashion label. And as all smart people do, he did listen to me and took my advice, and so they did a $20 spin remake on the No Fashion logo. So that was fun. So, I do not have every single No Fashion Records release. There's certainly a cutoff point where the quality starts to tank. Some of these are not the No Fashion versions, but, you know, I digress. The first thing that came out on No Fashion in 1992 was Bestial Summoning's The Dark War Has Begun. It was only released by No Fashion on LP. This is a reissue on CD, obviously. Very, very, very primitive. Some say improvised, blackened. It's black metal, but it is so primitive that you could maybe almost call it death metal. It's good. It's not really of the caliber or the ilk or the style that No Fashion is really eventually became known for, which is stuff that was very, very, very melodic and Swedish sounding. But this is not melodic. It's not very musical. So there you have that. The second release on No Fashion was Fester's Winter of Sin. I have not gotten around to picking up a copy of this, a reissue or not. Really not super familiar with it. They were from Norway. One of the few bands on No Fashion that were not from Sweden. They were Christian. They had a lot of controversy in interviews back in the early 90s for getting death threats and stuff. They persevered. They put out several records. A lot of my good nerd friends like hail it as a pretty good record. I've just kind of never really gotten around to like really paying attention to the album in full. So whatever, I need to get around to it. I know it's just one of those things that just kind of always slip through the cracks. Number 3, here's where we really start to get some quality. And like what's remarkable about No Fashion is like this was a leaping off point for a ton of really, really, really killer classic bands that everyone knows now. But this is Dark Endless from Marduk. Now, so this is also not necessarily similar to the ilk of bands that you would come to think of No Fashion for. In fact, there's not even a No Fashion logo on the back of this. So I don't know what, there may have been some like non-cooperation with Osmos or something. I'm not sure. I haven't really quite looked into it, but this is a really, really minimal version of Dark Endless by Marduk, but killer release. I have kind of, I don't know, I love Marduk. Actually, I hope it's not Turn Flag, it's not up. I love Marduk's melodic stuff. I love their evil, blasting, satanic stuff, but I have kind of come to separate this from the rest of their catalog as almost like a different band. I kind of reach for this album pretty regularly, just when I'm looking for something that's like dark and evil death metal. It's not that I go to that because I want to listen to Marduk. I listen to that because I want some dark, evil, primitive death metal that sounds kind of hallowed and has the Dan Sueno sound to it. So that's number 3. Number 4. So another thing about this, number 4 is Unanimated in the Forest of the Dreaming Dead. I have a copy of that. I didn't want to make this a super long video and cover the same band twice. So we're going to talk about Unanimated a little bit later, but In the Forest of the Dreaming Dead is really, really, really killer. It's just super long and has a really, really terrible, unnecessary Venom cover at the end of it. So, grain of salt. NFR 005. Very, very monumental, important album. Dance of December Souls by Catatonia. Yes, this is the only thing they would do with Catatonia, or Catatonia would do in fashion. But, yeah, great, great, great release. Such a unique thing. I don't feel like any other band has ever, like, perfected this style or paid homage to them in a way that was even close to how inspired and poetic and just beautiful this album is. So, Steve, if you are not familiar with Catatonia's Dance of December Souls, get on it. I kind of have mixed feelings about their discography overall. Certainly a lot of it is crap, But I will go out here and say that I don't really like much of any other Catatonian besides this one. Even a lot of people, as far as I can tell, seem to regard this one as highly as what's the one? Brave Murder Day. I don't care for Brave Murder Day. The drumming ruins that album. But this right here is an absolute masterpiece. Must have. It mixes doom, black metal, kind of has some Celtic Frostish kind of stuff going on there. It is stellar. Now, maybe the most genre-defining classic of this whole discography. What a banger. Sunderlane from Dissection. Sorry, my glare game is horrendous, but I'm sure most of you guys know this thing, right? I've been thinking like a lot lately about how the format of 4 guys on the back with the frames is such an iconic signifier of a pretty good album. So like if you're gonna go as far as to give your guys some frames, and it better be fucking good. That's just all I'm saying. But yeah, melodic death metal, perfect album. Next we are getting on. Okay, so that was number 6. Number 7 is Merciless's Unbound. Yeah. So Merciless, I think, did a couple of records with No Fashion. Their debut was not, because it was on Death Like Silence Productions. So this is their second record. Absolutely flawless. God damn, I'm so not in love with my glare tonight. But it is very, very frosty because of Dan Swano's production on it. It's just glorious. Another signifier of great albums is if they have some sort of spire or tower or walkway on them, and as to let you know that when you listen to this album, you are going to be going somewhere or taken somewhere. Very, very, very good. Next, it's Merciless. I go, okay. 008. Let's see here. I have a different version of this, but this is Throne of Ahaz's Niflheim. We'll talk about them at a later release. So a lot of the bands that are on No Fashion came back. They kept releasing a lot of stuff with this label because it just became like a family, like a Swedish family of great riff writers, excellent drummers, and I don't know, it just seemed like he could bankroll this stuff and put out a ton of releases in a really, really, really short amount of time. So we're in like 95 right now is when Niflheim came out, and we're going to be done by the time we get to like 98. So we're talking like 4 or 5 years, insane discography of incredible releases, and then out. Just, I mean, they quit around like, I don't know, when was the last release here? I've got a 67 from 2004, but I mean, the releases were pretty sparse by the 2000 or so. So that was 8. Number 9, Unanimated again. Ancient God of Evil. So a lot of people sleep on this band. It did finally get reissued a couple of years ago. Luckily, I didn't need that because I have this one. Maybe the only band that is close to the perfection and the melodicism and the songwriting that Dissection once knew. It is good. It was released or recorded by Dan Swano. Most of this stuff was recorded by Swano and his studio. Okay, you know what? I missed one. And I blanked on it. Wow, okay. I'll just have to put it in here. It's not next, however. 10, 95, 10. Lord Belial, Kiss the Goat. This is just an EP. They did another full length, Enter the Moonlight Gates. Good stuff. This is a little bit more death metal-y than their End of the Moonlight Gates album, which is also just total dissection worship. Then we get into another well-known band, and this is 96. We're talking Dark Funeral, Secrets of the Black Arts. I do like this album. Black Moon, David Farland plays some guitar and songwriting on this thing. I just know another thing that like No Fashion is very well known for is having Necrolord cover art. So most of the covers on No Fashion by what's the real name? Christian Wallen. You should know Dark Funeral, sure. So the one I can't believe I forgot it. The Cameron's My Shadow. I have a copy of this. I've been actually thinking about putting that on very recently because a friend of mine, Celestial Lethargy, shout out to you, showed a Dissection live album where it was after Ole Omen left and they had Tobias Kjellgren on drums, and I always didn't like his drumming in Dissection. He was slower, just didn't really have the same kind of energy that Ole did on the Skins. And he played in another band called Decameron, but I liked Tobias Kjellgren's playing in Decameron quite a bit. It's super melodic. It's got the tone on it is kind of a challenge. It is such a grating tone to it. I mean, it's super well produced, but it's an intentional guitar tone that is just punishing. And also one of the things I really like about Decameron is the vocal performance is inspiring. It is amazing. When you really listen to the album and you picture the guy standing in a room recording those vocals, it is unbelievable to picture how much pain and agony and emphasis he's putting forth in those words. It's a tremendous performance by everybody in the band, which is why it sucked to hear him go on to play live with Dissection and just like half-ass it. That sucked. But speaking of wonderful, incredible, memorable vocal performances, we have. Am I going right? Oh no. Okay. Metal Archives skips around in this. So, Blaze My Sorrow, If Emotions Still Burn, one of the greater vocalists in this whole canon of melodic Swedish bands, but God, so awesome. They're brilliant songwriters. They just have so much energy. You could really hear where At the Gates and a lot of those kind of bands were starting to kind of change their style to be more mechanical or modern or something. A lot of No Fashion bands, I think what makes them really unique is that they were inspired by each other, but also by a lot of early music. And they worked in a lot of acoustic guitar intros, and they were really trying to harken back to as far back as they could by trying to emulate the music of the past. And I think that's really, really well showcased here on If Emotions Still Burn. Another Necrolord cover art. These guys, I think, are still active. They did several other albums after this one, but they're not nearly as good as this one. And then we get into Thornberry House yet again with my favorite one from them on Twilight Enthroned. I don't know if this is a Necrolord cover. It's not a great cover. It's not a whole lot to really take in there. But this one's really good. It sounds quite a bit like Ancient Wisdom in that they are sometimes really melodic and sometimes they sound like Celtic Frost. They'll mix these like super unmelodic kind of idiotic riffs and then contrast them really greatly with some awesome dissection-ish melodicism. It's got kind of an oil and water, hot and cold sort of form to it that I kind of like, but it is weird. I will not lie, it is a little weird. Okay, so that was NFR 16. Now we're going on to NFR 017 with maybe one of the most well-known from this label's discography. We got Avengerlands, Welcome My Last Chapter. That is number 17. These guys were kind of like tuned down for a lot of, like, compared to the rest of the band and the bands on this label. But they wrote songs that sounded quite a bit like Dissection. I know I'm having a hard time describing these bands and differentiating their styles from one another without just saying they sound like Dissection. They all do. But these guys were great. They have a really frosty sound. Really never get sick of listening to this guy. Finally got reissued a couple of years ago. I can't remember who reissued it, but awesome release. Really, really highly sought after. And next we're going to... God, does this riff end or what? 18. When I think of this label, when I think of No Fashion, this is the release that I think of, because it's the one I want to grab to show people how awesome this label was. And it's maybe not the most likely to have been heard of by your standard metal fan, but I think this thing is just deadly riffing. So perfect in so many ways. I love it. I love you. I really love you. The Moaning, Blood from Stone. Great stuff. This is maybe a little bit more in the vein of, like, I don't know if a lot of people are aware of this, but, like, at the Gates, when they set out to write Slaughter of the Soul, they said, we want to write Rain and Blood our way. And they wanted to make the biggest possible record they possibly could while holding on to the tool belt that they had from their previous work. I think that makes sense. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I was going to compare these guys to Slayer, but not at all in the way that At the Gates, I think, set out to sound like Slayer. It's just that they're really, really riff-based. They're really, really riff-focused. Every single riff is absolutely deadly. It's almost just a little bit too much to take in how just endlessly melodic it is. Got a little Booty there. Hey, Booty. Great artwork. That is a killer one. And next, so many melodies. Okay, so that was 18, and then 19 is in my hand. Yeah. Silence of the World Beyond by Canaris Quintet. Another absolute classic banger. Ooh! The teeth of my jewel case are all banged out. That doesn't make me happy. Oh well. This is awesome. I probably should have looked up and tried to memorize what city a lot of these bands were from, because sometimes that can kind of tell you how different they're going to sound from all the other bands on this label or from other ones, but it's good. These guys had an EP that came out before this called As Tears. It was not on No Fashion, but that was the one that really gave me an idea for how, like, poetic and artful some of these bands would actually be. And these are one of the guys, I don't know, I just think they're really, really playing the style that they want to be. It's great. I want to say this one is actually released or recorded by Peter Tägtgren, if I'm not mistaken, but it sounds fine. Yeah, Peter Tägtgren. It's good. I listened to this one quite a bit. And so that was 19. 20 is End of the Moonlight Gate by Lord Belial. We'll talk about them for a minute. 21 is going to be this one, Allegiance, Bloodholm Surfer. So these guys probably could have been mistaken for a Norwegian band. They've got a lot in common with a band like Enslaved. So if you take like Enslaved's Blood Hymn or is it Elt? Yeah, that one. It has something kind of like this. So the drummer from Marduk plays on this one, so he's just a blast master. But this one is more Viking themed, and it is really fun, recorded by Peter Tägtgren. So at this point, I think they were cranking out so many albums that they couldn't rely on Peter Tägtgren for all of their recordings. So or Dance Fund. This is confusing nerd stuff. So Lord Belial, Allegiance, and then we have Mork Greenie. I don't. Where are you? Okay. Yeah, I didn't pull this one out. Mork Greenie with Return Fire. So where did Choose an Honor go? We must have skipped over that one. Well, I'm gonna fix it in post, but this is Return Fire. So definitely do pick this one up. I know, Steve, you said you were planning on getting all the Mork Greenie stuff. Do it. Do not hesitate. All their stuff is killer. I finally wound up seeing these guys live last year. Yes. And I'm not a big fan of posthumously seeing bands post their prime, but I paid attention to a little bit of it, and they were really, really killer. Bullet belts, also a great sign of good riffs, and these guys had 3 bullet belts in the snow. Yeah. So they got a little bit more kind of war themed, which a lot of times is kind of like a I'll see you later kind of moment, especially if they're getting into your airplanes, your bombers and shit. But man, these guys really, really, really never quite shit the bed. There's another, I don't know, there's a couple other ones after. I don't know if they've recorded anything recently or not. There's another, yeah, they did. Yeah, they recorded one in like 2022 or something like that. Anyways, that wasn't on No Fashion. So where are we? Allegiance, Mork Greenie, Lobotomy. Okay, I do not have Lobotomy's Kill, but that is from 97 NFR 023. I've never heard that one. But 23, 24? It's 24. I forgot to grab this, but I do have a copy of it somewhere. I'm not gonna bother going to get it. But Ophthalmia's Dominion is an album that kind of seems like it must have been written and recorded to fulfill a contract and kind of get them on their way, because it doesn't really sound like the rest of Ophthalmia's catalog. It sounds pretty easy. I mean, the songs are simplistic, fun, they're melodic, they're bangers. It's nothing amazing really whatsoever, but it's just a really well put together album, put together by guys who know what they're doing. And it's not really they're doing their best, but I don't know, it kind of has this charm for me. I've always kind of liked it. It's got kind of like fist pumping, sing along kind of choruses sort of thing, which is like not at all what the other releases on this label are like. So it's kind of like a weird outlier in the discography, but it is what it is. I do love it. So that's 24. And 25, why don't I go ahead and take it out for you? It's in a digipack, and this is kind of valuable, so I always want to protect it, but not these. A Pandemonic Requiem. I don't think enough people know how absolutely brilliant this band was. They did do a follow-up. It's also on No Fashion. It's worth picking up. But Pandemonic Requiem, to me, sounds like if Dissection were trying to play Left Hand Path by Entombed. And like, I feel like that's not that weird of an opinion to have about this band, but that's the vibe I get when I listen to this thing. It is absolutely killer. They're so inspired. Like, I think No Fashion, and especially just a lot of these specific bands, just have such a unique sound because of how inspired they sound, and the personality, the way they wrote those songs. And I think they were so passionate about their style that they wound up performing albums that just sound so impactful and so personal. And you can just really hear the power that these kids put into their instruments and their songs. And it just makes these albums just really, really timeless and unforgettable. I don't know if this has been reissued or not, so it's going back in the slipcase, but do not miss Nocti's Pandemonic Requiem. So that is So a second Ablaze My Sorrow album is 26. Then we have Dark Funerals, Vobiscum Satanis, which I don't think I still have a copy of that. I got rid of it back when I was but a wee lass. I don't think I've ever gotten it again. I would kind of like to pick it up. I do kind of miss it. Then we've got Acanarus Quintet's second album, The Only Figure 8. Awesome. And then, so I don't think I talked about this band. Vermin did an album called Millennium Ride. I've never heard it because the album cover is Beware, Danger. It probably sucks. But they did release a demo compilation called Obedience to Insanity. And this is on Chaos Records. And this band's debut came out on Chaos Records, and it is also awesome and kind of belongs on a list like this. But this thing surprisingly sounds quite a bit like a Sweet Suffocation, if you will, like Creating the Spawn era kind of stuff. We're getting to the end here. Don't worry. So that was 30, basically. Another Allegiance album. And then we've got Hypocrite with Into the Halls of the Blind for 32. Yeah, 32. How after a list like this, how can I say that this is any different than any of these other things? But this is killer, worth picking up. It's really, really, really fast. I think this is kind of one of the releases on here that shows that things were really starting to get crazy. It came out in 99, so No Fashion's 32nd release in 99. Things were really starting to kind of spin out of control, and I think these bands were starting to, you know, move out of the pocket of this style. Then we've got Lord Belial's Unholy Crusade, whatever, the second Noctis, and then Insania, World of Ice. I think this is a power metal band. I've never heard this. Maybe if I'm really bored someday. But then we've got a Lobotomy album, Born in Hell. Yeah. So Lobotomy, as I'm learning, the only reason I picked this up is because it was probably like $3. And also it was produced by Jukka Peterson, who a lot of people may know played drums on Dawn's Slaughter Son. But Lobotomy, while the moment they spent on No Fashion wasn't very great, I'm learning that they had quite a reputation for their demos being great. This has a birthday cake on it. That is unacceptable. So I need to spend some time with their previous demo stuff and just kind of get learned up on that stuff. So not essential by any means. A couple more. We're getting into the more forgettable ones. We've got Wolf, Dominion Caligula. The last one I'm going to show here is from a band, 41. Yeah, that's not on here either. You would think that this would have been released earlier. In fact, maybe this was like recorded a couple of years prior to its release or something. I don't know. Or this isn't great. I just have it. Okay, basically, I just have it. The band is called Nisteltine, or something like that. And this is really, really getting into the days of like the really forgettable bands. But anyways, there it is. Rape and Rapture, the last No Fashion album that I think is probably worth talking about. In fact, I feel like I remember this more fondly, and when I do put it in and listen to it every once in a while, I go, where's the good album that I thought this was? I don't know. That's just, that's what that is to me. So No Fashion. Hails to Anders Nyquist for a tremendous discography of unforgettable releases, hallmarking Swedish black metal and death metal for an era when it was super important to have all this stuff be super well known. If No Fashion wouldn't have been there for all of these bands and all these releases to be under the same banner, who knows how disparate this little micro genre could have been. So that's a ton of releases for you to check out, Steve. I hope you get back to me on what you like out of this pile. I'm hoping some of you are surprised to learn that some bands that you already knew got their start on No Fashion. But yeah, one of my favorite labels, one of the micro genres that I just think about a whole lot. And so having Majesties come out a couple years ago and do their homage to like all these bands was such a glorious experience. So if any of you Majesties fans happen to cross this video, please do your homework. I guarantee you all the members of the band would say, do the homework, listen to this stuff, study it, know it, learn it, exemplify it, and continue the legacy of melodic black metal from here on. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more videos like this, all you got to do is go to my Patreon, type in your numbers, and I'm going to charge you $6.66 a month, and you can have access to tons of stuff on there. You're going to love it. We'll see you next time.
Woohoo! That was a great video, and it was made possible mostly by me, but also thanks to the undying and kind support of my Patreon subscribers. Thank you all. I love you. If you are interested in being a part of my Patreon channel and supporting what I do, you are welcome to join at the URL below. It is only $6.66 per month, and you're going to love it. Thank you.